You have carried things that no one knows about, not because no one asked, but because the moment someone did ask, something inside you locked the door. You smiled. You said you were fine. You changed the subject. And later that night, alone, you carried the full weight of whatever it was by yourself, the way you always have. Not because you wanted to, because asking for help feels like handing someone a piece of yourself and hoping they do not drop it. Most people assume that those who never ask for help are strong. That is only half true. They are strong, but not in the way people think. Their strength is not confidence, it is architecture. It is a system built brick by brick in response to every time they reached out and were met with silence, judgment, or someone making it about themselves. They did not decide one day to stop asking. They were trained out of it by a series of small, painful moments that taught them the same lesson over and over. Other people are not safe to need. The first reason people stop asking for help is the most common one. At some point in their life, they asked, and it cost them. Maybe they were young. Maybe they told someone they were struggling and that person used it against them later. Maybe they cried in front of someone who told them to stop. Maybe they opened up and watched the other person become uncomfortable, distracted, or dismissive. None of these moments were dramatic enough to become a story, but each one left the same mark. A quiet rule written into the nervous system: do not show need. Need is where you get hurt. The second reason is more subtle. Some people do not ask for help because they do not want to become a burden. This is not low self-esteem in the traditional sense. It is a specific calculation that runs constantly in the background. They are measuring in real time how much space they are taking up in someone else's life, and the answer they keep arriving at is too much, so they shrink. They handle it themselves. They cancel plans instead of admitting they are falling apart. They say, "I'm just tired," instead of "I am drowning." Because in their mind, the worst thing they could ever do is make someone else responsible for their pain. The third reason is control. When you ask for help, you give up control of the outcome. Someone else decides how to help. Someone else decides when. Someone else may help in a way that makes things worse, or may promise to help and then forget. For people who have spent their entire lives managing chaos by becoming hyper-competent, that loss of control feels more dangerous than the original problem. It is not that they think they are better than everyone. It is that they have been let down so many times that self-reliance became the only strategy that never failed them. They are not refusing help, they are refusing disappointment. The fourth reason is the one that hides beneath all the others. Some people do not ask for help because they were never taught that help is something they deserve. This one usually starts in childhood. If you grew up in a home where your emotions were treated as inconvenient, where your problems were compared to someone else's bigger problems, where you learned very early that your needs were at the bottom of the priority list, you internalize something that is almost impossible to unlearn. You learned that your pain is not important enough to interrupt someone else's day. You carried that belief into every adult relationship, every friendship, every job, every quiet crisis you sat through alone, because the idea of saying "I need help" felt like asking for something you had no right to. There is a fifth layer that rarely gets spoken about. People who never ask for help are often the ones everyone else asks for help. They are the listener, the problem solver, the calm one in the crisis. They have built an entire identity around being the person who holds things together. And the cruel irony is that the better they get at carrying other people, the less anyone thinks to ask whether they need carrying too. They are so good at appearing fine that no one looks closely enough to see that they are not. If you are someone who has never learned how to ask for help, this video is not going to tell you to start. That would be too simple, and you would not trust it anyway. What it will tell you is this: the thing you are doing is not strength. It is survival. And there is a difference. Strength is knowing you can handle it alone and choosing to let someone in anyway. Survival is knowing you cannot handle it alone and refusing to let anyone see. You have been surviving for a very long time, and the fact that no one has noticed does not mean you are fine. It means you are very, very good at hiding. The question is whether you want to keep being good at that, or whether you are ready to find out what happens when you stop. Some people disappear on their birthday. They do not want the attention, the performance, the obligation to smile while people sing. That is not antisocial behavior. That is a quiet signal about how they move through the world. That is the next frequency. If this one reached you, stay tuned in.